Hey everyone, we're going to look at two games today, and we're kind of going to see how they stack up to one another. The first one we're going to look at is Wolfenstein 3D. This is a game that was ported to the Super Nintendo, and it's not the greatest port, but it does get some of the things across. Like if you wanted to play Wolfenstein 3D back in the early 90s and you didn't have a PC, this was a pretty good way to do it. The graphics are not that great, and the control system for the D-pad is not too wonderful, but it does work fairly well. The second one we're going to look at is Doom. We're going to kind of compare the two of them. Doom doesn't have it doesn't have as good of graphics as Wolfenstein does on the Super Nintendo, but neither of them really have great graphics to begin with. The farther the targets are, the worse like the pixelation gets. It's kind of rough, but they're both pretty good games in their own right, especially on the Super Nintendo. On the PC, they're wonderful games, but on the Super Nintendo, I think they could have done a little bit better.
Oh! Ah! Ah! Oh! Ah! Stop! Oh! Ah! Ah! Oh! Ah! Stop! Oh! Ah! Ah! Oh, stop! Ah! Ah! Oh, oh! Ah! 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 Oh! Ah! Ah! Stop! Oh! Halt! Ah! Oh! Halt! Oh! Halt! Halt! Stop! Oh! Stop! Oh! Halt! Oh! Stop! Halt! Oh! 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 Stop! Stop! Oh! Oh! Coming for
So that was Wolfenstein. That one I didn't like as much. I thought you just had to do too much work in it for me. I know that sounds a little weird, but the control scheme wasn't really gelling that well for me. Also, I honestly, I'm just going to be perfectly honest, I suck at first person shooters. But that one was kind of like uniquely difficult for me. I didn't really like how the ammo was like all linked in the same guns, how you just sort of like burned through them really quick, and how you couldn't really switch between your guns. If you could, I couldn't figure it out. I am pretty stupid when it comes to games, but still, that was a little weird for me. Yeah, as you get closer to your targets, you do get more detail and definition in them, and they look pretty good. They look close to the PC, but not totally accurate. I mean, it was an early 90s game, but still. It could have been... Actually, I don't think it could have been done a lot better, or even better than it was, because you're talking about taking a PC game and shoving it onto a cartridge, and sometimes those don't always work out very well. They did sacrifice on the looks, but at least the gameplay was still there, and it did work out pretty well. So that was Doom. I liked Doom a whole hell of a lot better than I did with Wolfenstein. For some reason, when they ported Doom over, it seemed like they had a much better handling on the controls. It doesn't look like it from my gameplay because again, I'm pretty crappy at first-person shooters, and so I'm definitely not gonna try to play them at any point in time in the future. But Doom worked a lot better on the Super Nintendo than Wolfenstein did. I'm not sure exactly why, but they got a lot more into Doom than they did for Wolfenstein. Probably because a lot of the censorship was sort of removed at that point. You could have the actual Nintendo actually allowed you to have blood and gore in the game. They didn't really allow that back with Wolfenstein. They even made them change the dogs into giant rats. I didn't encounter any of those in the game, but whatever. But with Doom, at least they let some of the blood and some of the gore stay in. You didn't get the whole like explosion when you hit a barrel. They didn't like blow up into little puddles of mush, basically. That might have been because the game doesn't, like the Super Nintendo just couldn't do that. But it was kind of a little bit lacking. I didn't go too far into Doom, but it's pretty faithful to at least the PC port. There's some other stuff with it that I think it could have been I think it could have been improved, but what I think and what was actually possible are probably two very different things. Anyway, guys, that's kind of my thoughts on the two games. I really do still prefer the PC ports. I don't really see a whole lot of reason to go and look at the Super Nintendo ports unless you want to do something like this and actually compare the two games or do like a basic review of them. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and hope you have a great day.